The next few days were a whirlwind, echoing with the clamor of Tom's conflicted thoughts. Each morning brought with it a renewed sense of urgency. He meticulously planned his cleaning routes through the office, but his mind strayed to Mia. He wondered whether she was truly safe within the whirlwind of attention her art was garnering. The layers of uncertainty hung over him like a thick fog. The buzz around Mia's artwork swelled, the competitive gears began to turn within the corporate structure. Tom watched as Emma began to navigate board meetings, her confident demeanor hinting at a personal struggle beneath. He often caught glimpses of her peering out the vast window that overlooked the city, lost in thought. It struck him how layered her reality was, just as his was. They were both striving towards something larger than themselves, yet tethered by the intricate webs of their choices. One afternoon, as Tom cleaned the vibrant break room colored with splashes of life, he hesitated before tossing empty cartons into the recycling. Staring at the waste before him, he felt a surge of frustration rise within him. At that moment, he remembered the innocent joy in Mia's eyes when she first held the art set he gifted her. It was a small gesture that had unexpectedly ignited a larger fight for recognition in a world that seemed indifferent to the unpolished and the unnoticed. Tom realized he had a chance, however slim, to reshape his narrative. Emboldened by thoughts of Mia, he approached Emma after one of her board meetings, the tension radiating off her like heat from a flame. "Do you think Mia could meet with potential investors?" he asked, his voice steady but uncertain. Emma, taken aback, shifted her gaze, her expression turning pensive. "Investors want results, Tom. They don't chase dreams." "But dreams move mountains," he countered, surprising himself with the strength of his conviction. Emma studied him, and for a moment, he felt seen not as a janitor, but as a passionate advocate for a child who possessed real talent. Her expression softened, giving way to contemplation. "Maybe," she mused quietly, "but it comes with risks. Are you prepared for that?" In those words, Tom sensed an unsettling truth. To support Mia meant putting his own family's stability on the line. The thought triggered a heaviness in his chest. But he also recognized a crucial fact: this was not solely about him anymore. He was growing through the experience, shedding the layers of doubt that often masked his potential. Days turned into nights, and as he mopped the floors, Tom envisioned gathering the courage to share his own story. He thought about introducing Mia's artwork to local galleries, developing a plan that sought both recognition for Mia's talent and a sustainable future for his family. This was not just about survival anymore, it was about legacy. His resolve solidifying, Tom stepped away one evening from his routine, determined to sketch out a proposal that articulated Mia's story intertwined with his own. With every word he penned, creativity mingled with strategy, opening up a world he had only ever dreamt of. But as he crafted this path forward full of potential, a knot of fear twisted in his stomach. What if failure lay at the end of this bold endeavor? What awaited on the other side of his ambition? The time lay ahead to face the boardroom, where Emma wrestled with her own complications, and Tom confronted his fears head-on. Would they be able to navigate the tumultuous waters entwined with hope and risk, or would they drown in the complexities that surrounded them? The following week unfolded in a haze of anticipation. Each day felt like a moment suspended in time, the pressure mounting with every tick of the clock. Tom's nights were restless. The echoes of his own insecurities haunted him, layered with dreams of what he could achieve if only he found the courage to act. He got up earlier than usual, his breath steadying as he forced himself to visualize Mia's artwork illuminated in a gallery, her name gracing the walls. The prospect of presenting their story was both exhilarating and daunting. He envisioned Emma's reaction as he prepared, mentally rehearsing the proposal while washing the floors, a task he normally performed on autopilot. Within the rhythm of his movements, his internal struggle transformed into a newfound conviction. At lunchtime, as he cleaned the kitchen, the ambience shifted. It buzzed with an energy fueled by conversation about a significant company announcement. Eavesdropping on snippets of chatter regarding anticipated layoffs and new market strategies ignited a sense of urgency within him. The corporate environment was as volatile as Mia's artistic world, driven by ambition yet marred by uncertainty. Tom weighed his options like he was balancing a scale. He had spent years working in the same role, blending into the backdrop of corporate life. And with each passing day, the voice inside him grew louder. Didn't he also deserve a chance to step into the light? He posed an echoing question: what could he accomplish for Mia, and ultimately for himself, if he decided to break free from the confines of his janitorial identity? Determined, he reached for his phone and drafted a quick message to Emma: "Can we meet? I have something important to discuss." The send button felt like a leap into the unknown, a small gesture that felt monumental. His heart raced as he awaited her response, a concoction of fear and exhilaration fueling his thoughts. That afternoon, he tilted his head to watch Emma through the glass door of the office as she engaged in a meeting. There was an intensity in her gaze, a need to navigate her challenges just as he was. The realization struck him: they were bound by a similar desire, both seeking transformation amid the chaos. After a tense couple of hours, they finally met in a quiet corner of the break room. Tom could sense the weight of unspoken expectations hanging in the air. "I've been thinking a lot about Mia's art," he began, his voice quivering slightly but steadying as he continued. "I want to create a proposal to showcase her talents. I believe we can reach investors who will see value in her story and ours." Emma's eyes sparkled with intrigue, yet caution lingered within her expression. "That's a bold move, Tom," she acknowledged. "You'll be exposing yourself and the risks involved. Are you ready for everything that comes with it?" This was the moment he had awaited, the prospect of laying everything bare, the risk that could either propel them into a dream or shatter their hopes into countless pieces. "I've never been more ready," Tom replied, a sentiment rising in him that felt foreign yet empowering. He understood that fear would always accompany ambition, but that it wouldn't lead him anymore. A newfound clarity echoed in his mind, stating boldly that the journey would shape him, not diminish him. As they spoke, Tom found himself drawing strength not just from his journey, but from Mia's luminous spirit. Each word exchanged was like a stepping stone toward the culmination of the proposal he had envisioned, but lurking beneath the surface, unresolved tensions brewed. The boardroom awaited, an arena where dreams collided with cold realities. Tom wasn't the only one discovering new strengths. Emma faced her own internal battle against the corporate machine and the burdens of expectations. The stage was set. Would they be able to rally together, pushing through self-doubt, or would they falter under the weight of their own ambitions? The question loomed large, marking a tipping point that neither of them could ignore. "Let us begin," Emma said, determination creeping into her voice, "and see how far we can go." As they moved forward, a rush of adrenaline coursed through him. Together, they would step into the boardroom and face the truth that awaited them there. The boardroom loomed ahead, a stark contrast to the familiar corridors that Tom had traversed for years. He could almost feel the coolness of the glass walls pressing against him, mirroring the glass ceiling he'd felt as if trapped beneath for so long. His palms were sweaty, the weight of what was to come settling on his shoulders like an unwelcome cloak. As he stepped inside with Emma, he observed the early arrivals seated around the polished table, their expressions shifting from idle chatter to curious assessment. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken judgments and expectations. Each executive represented a potential ally or adversary, and each face could either fuel his aspirations or extinguish them completely. "Remember," Emma whispered, catching his eye just before they took their seats, "this is as much about them believing in you as it is about Mia's art." Her encouragement spread warmth within him, merging with the resolve that had built up over the last few days. The stakes were undeniably high. Tom anchored himself in his chair and drew a deep breath, trying to suppress the cacophony of anxious thoughts spinning in his mind. This was his chance to break free from the shadows cast by his identity as a janitor. The fear of rejection clawed at him, vibrant and debilitating, yet he pushed through, mustering a confidence he hadn't known he possessed. As Emma began the presentation, outlining Mia's artwork and their vision, Tom focused on the shimmering images projected onto the screen. Each piece of art was a testament to Mia's resilience and creativity, a striking contrast to the cold, corporate atmosphere that surrounded them. There was a beauty in her struggle, a vision that deserved to be showcased, and he was there to support it. But standing in that boardroom, Tom was acutely aware of the contrasting perceptions he had for so long endured. The vast disparity between his identity and the personas of those seated across from him settled heavily in his heart. What if they saw just a janitor? Or worse, what if they dismissed the dream that he and Mia had painstakingly crafted? With Emma's voice as a steady backdrop, he slowly lifted his hand, interrupting the flow of the meeting. "I believe," he started, his voice steadier than he felt, "that art can bridge divides. It can inspire compassion and understanding." The room quieted, a momentary lapse in focus drawing attention to him. "People like Mia, and like me, have stories that matter. We face challenges that most people don't see. Investing in her art is investing in that conversation." He felt unshackled, revealing a part of himself he had kept guarded for too long. A slow realization dawned, buoyed by the reaction of the room. He was not merely speaking about Mia's art, he was sharing his own experience and validating their shared struggle. Emma nodded, her look reflecting approval and encouragement. They were aligned in intent and purpose, and together, they presented a united front against the corporate sterility that threatened to silence them. The executives stirred slightly in their chairs, their interest piqued, but just as hope began to bloom within him, he caught the steely gaze of one of the senior executives, a critical figure with a history of cutting down proposals before they even took flight. Tom's heart raced, but rather than retreat, he planted himself firmly in the present. This was his moment. The moment of truth. "Do you think you're ready to face the challenges that come with this?" The executive asked, a thinly veiled challenge hanging in the air. The question reverberated through Tom, stripping away the exhilaration of the moment and drawing forth the doubt he had wrestled with all his life. He could feel the tip of uncertainty flickering, but the thought of Mia's art made it flame fiercely. "I'm ready," he responded, letting conviction seep into his voice. "Ready to face rejection, skepticism, and anything else that comes our way. If we don't believe in her story, who will?" The room fell silent, his words striking chords of vulnerability and strength. This was about so much more than a presentation. This was about taking control of his narrative, a chance to reshape his identity from a janitor to an advocate for creativity and passion. He could see the executives glancing at one another, a shift perceptible within the energy that had moments before felt so stagnant. The tension remained, however. Would they choose to hear his plea, or would the armor of corporate indifference shield them from recognizing the potential he so passionately advocated? As he prepared for the possible fallout, a sense of urgency whispered through him. Time was ticking, and their decision could change everything. But deep down, a new question festered. How far was he truly willing to go to defend not just Mia's, but his own transformative journey into the light? Tom's mind raced as he tried to gauge the reactions swirling around the conference room. The air was taut with uncertainty, but beneath the tension was a flicker of something more potent: curiosity. It swirled around him like an invisible force, urging him to continue, to dig deeper into the depths of his own narrative. The executive's gaze bore into him, testing both his resolve and authenticity. He realized that the battle being fought wasn't merely for Mia's art, it was a confrontation for his own identity. He wasn't just advocating for a project he believed in, he was dismantling the labels others had placed on him and, in doing so, attempting to forge a new reality. Emma's presence was a quiet anchor. She sat steadfast beside him, her eyes reflecting confidence. That bolstered him, pushing him forward into the void. With each moment that passed, Tom felt another layer of fear shedding. "We live our lives under the weight of others' perceptions," he continued, undeterred. "But isn't it time we redefine those narratives? Isn't it time for us to step out of the shadows, to bring our stories into the light?" The meeting transformed into something unexpected. No longer simply a pitch, it had evolved into a dialogue, an exchange of thoughts and experiences. Executives started to lean in, their initial skepticism giving way to intrigue. Tom seized the moment, leaning on his newfound confidence, tapping into the vulnerability that had become his strength. What if Mia's art could be the catalyst for change? His voice was earnest, melding his passion with purpose. What if we could transform perceptions, not just about her journey, but about all stories that remain untold? He briefly glanced at Emma, who nodded to encourage him further. A few executives began scribbling notes, some murmured amongst themselves. There was movement. The air felt alive, charged with potential. He had dared to share not just Mia's journey but his own, and in doing so, had cracked open the armor around the corporate facade. For so long, Tom felt like a mere observer in his life, a silent figure in the background, but in this moment, he relished a new role, a protagonist, an agent of change. The thought exhilarated him. But uncertainty clawed at him still. Would this shift in perception hold after the meeting? The prospect of returning to invisibility haunted him, and yet, a whisper of resolve persisted. He wouldn't return to the shadows. When the meeting eventually tapered off, the executives exchanged wary, contemplative looks. One turned back to him and mentioned, "You speak with a conviction that's rare, Tom. I would like to hear more." It was an invitation, the first crack in the corporate shell. As the debrief began, Tom noted the subtle shift in the executive's demeanor. They had seen a glimpse beyond his uniform, beyond what he physically represented. There was momentum now, but Tom knew the real work was just beginning. He needed to ensure this wasn't a fleeting moment of interest but rather a foundation for deeper engagement. Outside the boardroom, life resumed its usual pace, the hum of activity returning and mingling with his thoughts. He felt exhilarated but also aware that this small victory could lead to more substantial challenges. Would he be able to navigate the expectations of an unfamiliar world? Would he truly embrace this opportunity for growth, no matter where it led? He closed his eyes, grappling with the enormity of his next steps. This was no longer just about Mia's artwork, it was an exploration of self-discovery, unraveling the threads of identity he had long since woven into his fabric. Just then, Emma touched his arm gently. "Your words shifted the tone today. I think they saw you." Tom swallowed hard. But did they really? What if it was just a moment? "There's only one way to find out," she replied, the spark of encouragement igniting once more in her eyes. As they walked out of the building, a surge of hope battled against doubt. What lay ahead could reshape not only Mia's life but his own. Could he navigate this new path of professional growth while remaining true to his past? The echoes of the meeting still rang in his ears, but would their curiosity turn to support? He felt the pressing need to carve out a space for both Mia's art and his own emerging identity in a world that had not yet welcomed either, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the skyline, he took a deep breath. The journey ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear, the time had come to confront the next challenge, proving his worth not just as an advocate but as an emerging leader. Would he rise to that occasion or remain confined to his previous labels? Tom walked with purpose, the rhythmic sound of his footsteps merging with the cacophony of the bustling city outside. Each step felt like a pledge to himself, a commitment to embrace this new chapter of his life, no matter the challenges that lay ahead. He glanced at Emma, who was deep in thought, likely weighing the implications of their meeting as much as he was. Their shared silence was filled with an unspoken understanding. They were both standing at the brink of something extraordinary. As they approached a nearby cafe, Tom felt the urge to order something comforting. He preferred the routine of his old life, the simple pleasure of a cup of coffee in hand, but today felt different. Today demanded clarity and purpose. They entered, the barista's cheerful greeting momentarily breaking his reverie. He ordered a black coffee, Emma opting for a herbal tea, and they settled at a small table bathed in soft light. "I can't help but think about what that executive said," Emma started, her voice earnest. "You can't let this moment slip away, Tom. It's a doorway to a wider narrative. And what if I can't walk through it?" He countered, a shadow of doubt creeping back in. What if all they saw was a fleeting moment of passion? What if the real me remains buried? Emma leaned closer, her gaze steady and unwavering. "You don't owe them the version of you they've come to expect. You have the opportunity to redefine yourself. But it requires more than just words, you need to act. What will that look like for you?" Tom's heart raced. He had been thrust into a spotlight he had long evaded. He considered Emma's question, searching for what action would resonate with both his professional ambitions and personal growth. What past experiences could he draw upon, not just as a mere advocate for Mia's art but as a leader who could inspire change? Before he could voice his thoughts, the cafe door swung open. A young boy entered, his bright orange shirt contrasting sharply with the gray of the day. He was pushing a wheelchair with difficulty, his brow drenched in sweat. In the chair sat a girl, her eyes full of youthful hope despite her paralyzed limbs. Tom watched as the boy struggled, determination etched on his face. "What is he doing?" Tom whispered, captivated by the scene unfolding before him. "That's dedication," Emma replied, her eyes focused on the pair. "He's not letting anything hold him back. That girl relies on him, and he's showing up for her." Tom felt a sense of urgency rise within him. The boy's effort felt like a mirror reflecting the personal struggles he faced. Would he remain encumbered by self-doubt, or would he step into his own moment of action? Clarity started to crystallize around his thoughts. What if I organize an event that truly highlights Mia's art and the stories behind it? A chance to connect with people beyond the corporate walls, he proposed, his voice firm. Not just a gallery showing, but an experience that challenges the status quo and encourages others to share their stories. Emma's eyes sparkled. "That's it. You could create a movement around it. This could be your way to redefine how you're perceived." Tom was on fire now, envisioning the potential opportunity to shift the narrative not just around Mia's work, but around his own identity. The boy was still struggling with the wheelchair, but he wasn't giving up. The determination he felt mirrored the resolve building inside him. "Let us do it," Tom said, a renewed sense of purpose flooding through him. "I'll start reaching out to galleries, and we can brainstorm ideas, turn this into something that can genuinely resonate with people. I won't allow past fears to cage me anymore." As they finished their drinks, the young boy finally managed to maneuver the wheelchair to a table. The girl smiled, her expression radiant in contrast to the effort it took to reach that point. Tom felt a spark of inspiration. Her triumph was palpable, a testament to perseverance in the face of adversity. "You know what?" he said, his voice stronger now. "I need to talk to the executives. Again. I need to lay the groundwork for this vision. Are you with me?" Emma nodded vigorously, excitement coursing through her. "Yes. But realize something: this is the beginning of accountability for you. You will face resistance, and there will be moments of self-doubt. This isn't just about advocacy anymore, it's about evolving as a leader. Can you embrace that?" Tom met her gaze, the weight of his journey colliding with the promise of his future. He realized he stood at the threshold, not of a singular opportunity, but of a transformation that would require grit and resilience, to confront both internal and external challenges, and as they left the cafe, a realization struck him with unexpected sharpness. This was just the beginning. The time had come not only for his ideas to surface but to fully cast aside the fears that had held him captive. In this new chapter, he had to confront his ideals and the conflicting pressures of a system resistant to change. Would he hold steady against the storm of doubt awaiting him, or would he falter under the weight of expectation? Tom took a deep breath, feeling the surge of determination as they stepped into the bustling street. All he knew was this: the journey to influence had truly just begun, and the stakes were higher than ever. The city's pulse quickened around Tom as he and Emma stepped onto the busy sidewalk. He could feel the weight of their conversation clinging to him like a heavy coat. Every face in the crowd became a potential ally or adversary in his quest to redefine who he could be. The air hummed with possibility, but along with it came a shiver of fear. "Do you think I'm ready for this?" Tom asked, glancing at Emma, who walked beside him, eyes bright with ambition. "Readiness is subjective. It's more about the willingness to leap," Emma replied, her enthusiasm unwavering. "You need to begin your outreach now, while the momentum is ripe. Remember, you're shaping a narrative here, not just for Mia but for your own evolution." He nodded, absorbing her words as they meandered through the throngs of people. This was no longer just a side project, it felt monumental. The vision of a powerful, narrative-driven experience surged in his mind, compelling him forward. After some time, they found themselves outside a notable gallery, their initial destination. Tom hesitated. The imposing facade of the building mirrored the uncertainty swirling within him. He closed his eyes, breathing deeply, grounding himself. He had to approach this like a leader, not a follower. "Let us go in," he said, his voice steadier now, as they ascended to the entrance. Inside, the ambience shifted, art adorned every wall, echoing stories of those who created them. He felt the familiar tingle of inspiration. He imagined how Mia's art could captivate the same audience, draw them into her world. They approached the receptionist, and he gathered his courage. "I'd like to speak to someone about potentially showcasing an artist's work," he stated, trying to mask the quiver in his voice. "Do you have an appointment?" She responded, her tone politely detached. His mind raced. "Not yet, but then you'll need to schedule one," she interrupted, diverting her attention to her screen. The rejection hit hard, striking at the core of his resolve. Doubts clawed at him. Was this the first taste of resistance Emma had warned about? He glanced at Emma, who raised an eyebrow, encouraging him silently to push further. "Can I at least leave some information?" He pressed, feeling the urgency. "This artist's work needs to be seen. It's raw and surreal, and it has a story that speaks to so many people. I can set up a meeting if necessary, but I genuinely believe in sharing this." The receptionist paused, glancing up with minor interest. "You can leave this, but no promises. Our calendar is very full," she said, taking the paperwork hesitantly. "Thank you," Tom replied, face flushed. He turned away, chiding himself for momentarily faltering. This wasn't about perfection, it was about persistence. As they exited the gallery, Emma said, "That was a vital first step. You let your passion show, even if the outcome was not what you hoped. This is just the beginning." Doubt rested heavy on Tom's shoulders. What if they dismiss me? What if I can't make this happen? Then it's your job to make them listen. If you truly believe in Mia's story, let that conviction drive you. You have to be willing to battle skepticism, and that starts now. Organize those thoughts, draw together the pieces of your vision. Tom squinted against the hustle of the street, something igniting in him. He needed to delineate his plans. This wasn't solely about an exhibition, it was about crafting a movement against complacency. Gasps of recognition began brewing in his mind. What if he could center the exhibition around narratives that intersected with Mia's life, bringing others into the fold? Suddenly, an idea struck him with exhilarating force. What if I create an online platform? A space not just for Mia, but for others who feel overlooked. We can showcase the stories behind the art. A new narrative driven by individual experiences. Emma's eyes lit up. Yes. You'd be democratizing the art world. It's powerful, inclusive, and a bold step toward framing your evolution. Tom's heart raced in rhythm with the vision growing clearer by the moment. However, he understood that this idea would require meticulous planning and the capability to address criticism. This wouldn't just be a project, it was a declaration of his identity. Navigating uncharted territory meant a confrontation with deep-rooted fears, both personally and professionally. As he returned home that evening, Tom felt like he had crossed into a realm of undiscovered potential. But behind the flicker of optimism lay an undercurrent of anxiety. What if he wasn't enough? With a resolve that tightened his jaw, he whispered into the silence of his apartment, "No more hiding." Tomorrow he would begin laying the foundation of this platform, inviting others to share their truths and struggles, but in the back of his mind lurked another thought, a question of how the executives from earlier would truly respond when met with this new vision. Would they see the merit in authenticity, or would they uphold the status quo that stifled voices like Mia's? All that remained was the feeling of impending confrontation. He couldn't shake off the stirring in his gut. He stood uncertain at the edge, prepared for what lay ahead, but senses heightened and alerts blaring. The pressure would build until the moment he confronted them again. Tomorrow would yield a new chapter within him, one where vulnerability met ambition in an uneasy alliance. But for now, uncertainty settled in like a low fog, reluctant to lift. The morning light streamed into Tom's apartment, slicing through the remnants of his uncertainty like a knife. He awoke with a fierce determination. Today was the day he would confront his fears head-on and take the first steps toward building something meaningful. The thought of establishing an online platform for artists like Mia consumed his mind. Each detail solidified in his mind, from the layout to the outreach strategies he would employ. As he sat at his kitchen table, Tom opened his laptop, the screen illuminating his face. The task at hand was daunting. He envisioned a platform that showcased art interwoven with personal narratives, stories often untold in the mainstream art scene. The idea made sense. Art was more than just visual pleasure, it was a vessel for emotions and experiences that deserved to be shared. His fingers hovered over the keyboard as a wave of doubt crashed over him. What if no one cares? He muttered under his breath, wishing he could silence the inner critic that tended to rear its head during moments of ambition. Yet, deep within him, something else surged, a stubborn resolve rooted in the belief that every story mattered. Tom started to sketch out the vision. An inclusive name for the platform, a straightforward yet engaging tagline, and an outline of how various artists could contribute. His heart raced with each keystroke, a mix of adrenaline and fear pushing him to keep going. He realized this wasn't just about Mia or any singular artist, it was about creating a digital sanctuary for the unheard voices. That he set concrete goals for the day, established the website framework, outline initial marketing strategies, and gather feedback from Emma, who had proven herself to be an invaluable ally. As he planned, he could almost feel the question of what if morph into why not. Once he had fleshed out his ideas, he called Emma. I've drafted some plans for the platform. Can we meet later to discuss? His voice was steady, filled with purpose this time, unlike the doubts that had hung in the air the day before. Absolutely. Can't wait to see what you've come up with, she replied, excitement reverberating through the phone. The affirmation from Emma lifted a weight off his shoulders. They were in this together, he wasn't alone. After hanging up, Tom felt the urgency to cement his ideas. He allocated time for a brainstorming session to imagine the community he aspired to build. Each minute spent focusing on the project pulled him away from the swirling doubts that had been his constant companions. Instead, he began to envision an artist's sanctuary where engagement would override the apathy of the traditional art world. The ringing of his phone snapped him out of his fervent planning. It was an unknown number. With reluctant curiosity, he answered. A voice, unfamiliar yet authoritative, introduced themselves as part of the gallery's executive team. Hi, Tom. I wanted to discuss the information you submitted regarding showcasing an artist's work, the voice said. Tom's breath hitched. Oh, yes, of course. Competing emotions surged within him, hope and fear in an agonizing tango. Can we schedule a meeting to explore this? Your passion is compelling. As the conversation unfolded, Tom felt his thread of disbelief unravel. This was exactly the opportunity he had anticipated but never truly believed would materialize. The moment felt unreal. He could already envision the meeting room, his confrontation with the executives, the bridge between his dreams and their acceptance looming before him. After the call ended, he sat back, his heart pounding. All his worries seemed to crush against the tidal wave of his unfolding reality. This edgy confrontation with the gallery would be pivotal, a chance to present his vision to people who could stifle or amplify it. Suddenly, one constant thought looping in his mind morphed into a mantra of urgency. What he had believed were just fledgling aspirations could flourish into something profoundly liberating. As his fingers brushed against the laptop keys again, he thought, this moment marked the injection of real stakes into his venture. Nothing could shield him from the impending pressure of not simply criticizing the status quo but also challenging it. He stood, pacing his small living area, invigorated by the call's implications. The time had come to face not only others but also the remnants of my self-doubt, he declared to the empty room. A slow smile crept across his face. He was ready to fight for Mia's narrative and for every overlooked story vying for attention. Tom recognized that the stakes had just risen dramatically. The onus lay on him to navigate the turbulence and bring forth a vision that would resonate. As he caught a glimpse of his reflection in the window, for the first time, it seemed to stare back, not with fear but emboldened eagerness, but the thought lingered in the back of his mind: if the meeting went south, if they dismissed his ideas, then what? Would his voice be lost among the cacophony of dismissive skepticism? With that thought simmering, he felt the weight of both potential and risk settling on his shoulders, igniting a fierce determination to rise to the occasion ahead. Tom stood in front of the mirror, mentally rehearsing every word he would articulate in the upcoming meeting. His pulse quickened as he finalized his thoughts, envisioning not just the words but the tone and emotion he needed to convey. Today was not merely about a collection of ideas, it was about crafting a narrative robust enough to shake the very foundations of the art world. The reality of what he was preparing for, the judgment from seasoned executives, weighed heavily on him. He acknowledged the fear rising like bile in his throat but chose to push it down. When he glanced back at his reflection, he saw not just trepidation but an emerging version of himself: an artist, an advocate, a dreamer unafraid to challenge complacency. After some deep breaths, he gathered his notes, organized them into a tidy folder, and headed out. The streets buzzed with life, but he felt oddly detached from the world around him, his mind racing ahead to the meeting. Each step felt laden with significance, almost like a ritual leading to an altar where he would present his vision. As he stepped into the gallery, the realm where his dreams could either elevate or collapse, and in turn led him to the meeting room. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation, and Tom had to remind himself to focus on why he was there. The chance to establish a platform capable of unearthing hidden artistic gems was on the line. The executives entered the room, and Tom's heart raced like a runaway train. The group, dressed sharply and exuding an air of authority, settled in. "Thank you for joining us today, Tom," one of the senior team members greeted, his expression inscrutable. "Thank you for this opportunity," Tom replied, attempting to inject confidence into his voice. As he launched into his presentation, he meticulously outlined the mission of the platform. Each slide was designed to provoke thought, highlighting the emotional undercurrents within art, the stories behind each piece, and, importantly, the artist's journeys. Midway through, he noticed skeptical glances exchanged amongst the team. The air thickened with doubt. A knot formed in his stomach. What if they dismissed his ideas before he could truly express their depth? Taking a breath, he confronted the tension directly. "I know this isn't the typical model you see, but I believe it's time for a shift. Artists have voices that must be amplified, and it's our duty to create that channel." One of the executives leaned forward. "And how do you plan to attract these artists? What makes you think they'll choose your platform over established ones?" Tom paused. This question cut deeper than he anticipated. Because it isn't just a platform, it's a space that validates their experiences. Artists are hungry for outlets that respect their narratives and provide community, not just exposure. The words spilled out, fierce and passionate, resonating within him as if reminding him of his purpose. He could see a flicker of interest from another executive in the corner, but the skepticism still loomed large. "Respect is earned, not just offered," she replied. "What happens when this idealism meets reality?" Tom found himself at a crossroads: how to convey a sense of authenticity when faced with cold practicality. He felt the pull of doubt again. But right then, he recalled Mia's words about her art transforming into a voice for the invisible. Her fears, her unyielding spirit, became the fuel for his own conviction. "I understand that," he said, his voice steadier than before. "But I believe those who deserve to be visible remain invisible if they feel supported. This goes beyond art, it's about humanity. When we showcase work that resonates emotionally, we cultivate a loyalty that surpasses mere views and clicks." The room fell silent, and Tom's heart pounded in his ears. His words hung in the balance, and he was suddenly aware of the choice before him. He could retreat into self-doubt, or he could lean into his passion, meet their skepticism head-on, and reframe the stakes. With every passing second, he realized that success or failure depended less on their approval and more on his unwavering belief in what he was trying to create. However, shadows of uncertainty still lingered in the room. What if their final decision rested on a singular moment of hesitation from him? There is something to be said about the courage it takes to defy norms. Tom felt himself rallying, and it's that very courage that can forge a new pathway. I'm here because I believe in the stories that often go untold. As the executives exchanged contemplative glances, Tom sensed that the tide could shift, but only if he maintained this intensity. He needed to embody conviction, but the lingering doubt about their final verdict began gnawing at him again. If he faltered now, would he lose this chance not just for himself but also for all the artists he wished to uplift? That thought gripped him as the silence grew heavier, and he couldn't help but wonder what would happen next, how he would either be propelled forward or face yet another setback in his journey. Were the ghosts of his previous failures finally beginning to fade, or were they gearing up for one last stand? The boardroom felt simultaneously electric and oppressive as Tom wrapped up his presentation. The air vibrated with anticipation, but Tom could see the doubts flickering in the eyes of the executives. Had he truly managed to convey the essence of his vision? Would they dismiss the emotional core he had tried so earnestly to present? But as the silence lingered, a shift occurred. One executive leaned forward, breaking the tension. You present compelling arguments, Tom. But how do you plan to sustain this platform financially? Another executive added, investments in art can be unpredictable. The reality is cold and harsh. Tom's pulse quickened. These were challenges, not just barriers, and he realized this was his opportunity to further assert his purpose. Sustainability is achievable when we prioritize compelling narratives, he said, his voice gaining strength. Artists connect with audiences on a deeply personal level. By fostering a community that celebrates their journeys, we secured not just funding, but advocacy rooted in genuine investment. At that moment, he reflected on how far he had come, no longer merely a janitor, but an advocate weaving the stories of the marginalized into a transformative fabric of visibility. As he spoke, he visualized Mia's art, every stroke and vibrant hue representing the stories of countless others. The flicker of interest he had seen from another executive had turned into a full glimmer. They were leaning in, not just engaged but intrigued. Strengthened by that empowerment, Tom took a deep breath, allowing conviction to wash over him. I understand the challenges, but art is a bridge to understanding. Imagine curating exhibitions that intertwine stories of the overlooked with the art itself, building a connection that doesn't fade. We can transform how art is perceived. This isn't just about revenue, it's about relationship building. He perceived subtle nods around the table. This recognition, rooted in his steadfast belief, motivated him further. Tom's fear transformed into clarity. The stakes were no longer simply about advocating for Mia but championing a vision that blended commerce with compassion. The meeting continued, and there they were, executives engaging with Tom's passion, a true collaboration unfolding. A discussion transpired, ideas bouncing around like kinetic energy. They deconstructed his initial proposal and actively contributed to building something promising. As they fleshed out logistics, a realization washed over Tom. He wasn't vying for approval, he was crafting a partnership. Eventually, the time came for them to share their thoughts on his vision. We see the potential in what you propose, one of the executives said. You've sparked intrigue within us, Tom. We'd like to explore how we can integrate this into our upcoming strategy. A joyful surge coursed through Tom's body. It was a tangible acknowledgement of his transformation. Recognized not just as a janitor, but now as an innovator, a passionate advocate for change. The conversation turned into actionable ideas, details cemented into a direction they could pursue together. Walking out of that boardroom, Tom realized the landscape had altered. He had pushed through the veil of doubt, standing at the precipice of true agency over his narrative. It wasn't just about Mia's story anymore. It was profoundly about his journey toward commitment and leadership. It was about fortifying a community around art that uplifted all voices. He stepped onto the street, the city pulsing around him with life, yet somehow, he felt renewed. A sense of solid confidence blossomed within him. Tom took out his phone and drafted a message to Emma, expressing gratitude and excitement. This victory belonged to both of them. Without her encouragement, without allowing himself to embrace the courage that had surfaced within him, none of this would have been possible. As he walked home, illuminated by the waning sun, Tom envisioned an art movement that would elevate not only Mia but countless underestimated artists, a legacy founded on belief, passion, and unwavering support. This was his time to prove that the narratives often hidden behind the walls of galleries could indeed resonate, that he could maintain his integrity while navigating the labyrinth of corporate art, and that he could transform the path ahead not for himself alone, but for an entire community of aspiring artists. In the tapestry of life, Tom had woven a new thread. His transformation symbolized a commitment to not just advocate for others, but to recognize his worth and design pathways that invited voices long left unheard into vibrant daylight. This was the moment he had fought hard for, to achieve not merely success, but also authentic fulfillment. His legacy intertwined actively with the stories he had long fought to bring into fruition. In that stillness, as he approached a block from his home, something within him surged. Today marked a transformative milestone, the declared beginning of nurturing authentic narratives through art. Now, he could stride forward boldly, transformed, fortified, and ready to lead. You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.